Well, I think I should put this one out. And, there's a lot of people putting about the end of the world and drama, and the sky's falling and the dollar's going to collapse. Well, it come to my attention. Actually, it was a subscriber. Thank you very much. You know who you are. He told me about a couple years ago. Actually, it was less. It turned out to be. He said this basically in October 2012. It was Paul Volcker. Not somebody like one of the conspiracy bloggers or anybody out there that makes money off of fear for profit, but it was Paul Volcker, the former Fed chairman. He said that he gave it a timeline about a year and a half from that time, talking about around the end of October 25th, 2012, that was when the real financial collapse was going to come about, so that put it around March 4th, 2014. Now, I was coming up with the February-March deal because I thought the problem was going to come to a head in October 2013, and they forestalled it. Then the other thing is the Secretary of Treasury starts talking about problems coming up where they're not going to have problems with cash flow, and I thought that was interesting. So in other words, none of this is coming from, the conspiracy bloggers. This is coming from, the regular people high up, right? I mean, you could say, do you trust them? But why, they're not going to throw out fear on purpose. They're not going to try to destroy the faith of full faith and credit of the U.S. government and stuff like that. They're not going to try to do that. So, this was Paul Volcker. And basically, it goes on to say, this was actually coming out about 2 months before the Mayan calendar deal, at the December 21st or December 22nd, 2012, and the lights were supposed to go out and the sun wasn't supposed to work for a couple days and all that other stuff. And he says actually the end is actually there. He says if the next president, he was talking about, right before the election, basically before, the November election, this was in late October, he says the next president does not deal with the situation in a very strong and serious manner in the first 6 months of his administration. This is what's going to take place in about a year and a half, so put that around March 4th, 2014. Now, this in itself, even though it's coming from Paul Volcker, you're not talking some conspiracy blogger out there, but it also probably tells you where Pastor I Sell DVDs is probably getting his inside information from. Maybe he reads it on the internet, right? That's where I look at the major media. I read this stuff all the time. I didn't see this article, though, but somebody alerted me to this, and I was kind of coming up with this from other angles, not from, the conspiracy blogs. So I don't want to pump fear out there, but it goes on to state that, interest rates will skyrocket. Now, I want to throw something in my conjecture on this, because he says interest rates will skyrocket, businesses will fail, unemployment will go to record levels, there'll be a material and food shortages will be rampant, and people will find out they can't eat gold. They're going to find that out. And, things aren't getting better, they're getting worse. Now, part of this, and also he stated, in contrast to my video that innovation can basically overcome problems, he's going to say enough innovation actually is not going to, technological advances in innovation is not going to be enough to offset the problems. That's because we've got too many leeches, basically. They're not just in the big banks, they're all over the place. There's a lot of people like that. But I'm going to interject something here. What can actually, he's talking about a collapse in the oil prices that would collapse Russia, just everything. Collapse, collapse, collapse. This has come from Paul Volcker, basically, back around October 25th, 2012. It wasn't 2011, it was actually 2012. And he said the timeline was about a year and a half from now, which would put it around March 4th, 2014. Now, what I think may happen, this is just from me, not the inside guy. Let me put it this way: it's common sense. You don't need an inside guy. If the dollar's collapsing, what are they going to do to protect the dollar? What creates demand for dollars in the world? Oil, correct? High oil prices actually would create more demand for dollars. That is where you might see, and I've always had this theory out there, but high oil prices are also going to be high gold prices, high silver prices, and everything else. Whereby if there's a catastrophic problem like, Saudi and Iran go at each other and, something happens and oil refineries are blown up or whatever, it's like maybe that's not going to make a severe oil shortage, but it'll cause the oil price to go way up because it only takes like 1 or 2% of the world's global market of oil coming off the market to make the price go up a lot. If you got about 3% of the global supply coming off the market, maybe the price will go up 50 to 100%. That's kind of how it works. But that will actually protect the dollar in a last-ditch way. Now, this is coming from me, but I've also seen this analysis in other places, and it makes a lot of sense because oil is traded for in dollars. So if oil goes way the hell up, that's going to create a demand for dollars and temporarily postpone a crash of the dollar. Now, I don't know about this deal, but I have to say it's very interesting because it comes from Paul Volcker. Doesn't come from Alex Jones or somebody. I don't know. I don't even want to pick on him, but there's a gazillion names out there I could throw out here. So you can also say Paul Volcker is the elite inside guy, but you can read what he said right in the major media. It's in the major media. It was already there. It's been there for quite some time. I didn't know about this. And, I'm looking at it from other angles, but I'm also finding it interesting that Secretary of Treasury stated that there'd be cash flow problems in the United States government probably at the end of February. I don't get it. I don't know why he's saying that. Because I thought they could just create cash out of nowhere, right? Really, right? So something's going on that's a lot deeper than we understand, but it's been known for quite some time. But he also says there will be uprisings, like in Greece and Spain, because, I guess the prices of food is going to go up, the price of energy is going to go up. I don't know, man. I don't know. They've been crying wolf about this damn thing so long, it's like hard to believe, Now, I have to comment a little bit about Pastor LW here because he may actually be getting his information from, this Paul Volcker article that I'm reading here that I didn't know about. So, but you have to admit, Paul Volcker is an inside guy. If anybody's going to tell you what the problems are, and if they don't, and he says if they don't get resolved, basically in the first 6 months of the next administration, talking about when the new president gets elected in 2012, okay, November 2012, if they don't do stuff right away to take care of it, the timeline is for about 1.5 years. So that's why they're fixing the date at, March 4th, 2014, from the time he said it. So maybe that's not a perfect pinpoint, accurate date, but that's what he said. So it looks like things are pretty severe. I don't know, man. I got a sneaking suspicion, 2014 is going to see a big spike in the metals, and they're going to fix things, and they're going to come down. And I think it's got a few more years before we really, really see a problem. That's what I think. I don't think we're going to see the catastrophic, collapse of the USA in 2014. But maybe we will see some severe problems. There's a couple warning shots out here, and they're not coming from the fear pumpers, and they're not coming from the bloggers, and they're not coming from, fear porn for money. This came from Paul Volcker. Now, he's not saying, they're inferring March 4th, 2014 by saying it's 1.5 years, and that's exactly 1.5 years from the time he said it. But then, I kind of put that together with what Secretary of Treasury said, Lew, that, he's talking about the end of February coming into a serious cash crunch. I don't know, man. But, some of the stuff they're talking about, you can't eat gold, that's been advice I've been telling you all along. that you should have food storage, water storage, that type of stuff. And I even got food for the kitty cats, man. I got all kinds of extra food for them guys, man. So if we got, we got the store price. The cat food goes up to $5 a can. I still got the stuff that's under $1 a can, Anyway. Yeah, we got to keep the cats going too, right? Anyway. So, I don't know. There's a few other people who are saying the same thing. David Volker, former U.S. comptroller, suggested a similar time frames for the economic catastrophic collapse too. So, hey, you don't need to buy DVD. It's actually in the major media. It's actually in the major media. So, and also talking about there might be runs on banks, which might start suddenly, build quickly, and snowball, and blah, blah, blah. I don't know, man. But like I said, this has been in the major media in being foretold back in October of 2012. That's about the timeline, a year and a half from now. Interesting, man. Big time. He also said the next president will have about 6 months to fix the problem before it's too late. And this is talking like before Obama got elected for the second term. Did he fix the problem? Nope. So, I don't know, man. Just keep chill. And, I do think innovation and technology can overcome the problems. But, like I said, we don't just have the too big to fail. We got a lot of people in the United States who just a lot of dead wood. And that is the other main problem, too. So, if the government actually cannot meet its obligations, and, there's other things going on where people are losing faith in the dollar faster, and, the currency starts dropping and it causes energy and food prices to go up faster. Wow. Yeah, there will be problems. But just have to repeat again. I mean, it's not just coming from Paul Volcker. Now, there's another one, like I said, Volker was, David Volker, former U.S. comptroller, said the same thing. Now, also, we have the warning from the Secretary of Treasury, too, saying that there's probably going to be some kind of cash crunch. Now, he's not, the Secretary of Treasury right now is not talking about, catastrophic collapse, but it's interesting he's talking about this cash crunch. So, I don't know, man. I don't know. We shall see, but do what the hell you want. I've already been somewhat prepared for quite some time, or been prepared, so I ain't really worried about it. So, take it for what it's worth. What can I tell you, man? This may be legit this time. It may be.